Today I'm here to announce that our office will be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michelle Singer.
Steven Spielberg and Rob Reiner grew into giants of modern cinema on parallel tracks, one architecting awe and peril with operatic scale, the other distilling human behavior into stories that feel intimate, lived in, and funny in the marrow. Different lenses, same obsession. Connection. They were never daily coffee friends, but when their paths crossed, awards rooms, guild events, late-night conversations about cuts and endings.
Nick attended Conan O'Brien's Christmas party Saturday night with his parents, Michelle and Rob. Maybe Nick was not invited to Conan O'Brien's party. He was wearing a hoodie. Reports are that he was acting weird, apparently accosting celebrities outside. Nick reportedly stormed off in a huff after a tiff with Bill Hader of SNL and Barry at Conan's Christmas party, and that Rob had been telling people, friends, that they were scared for Nick and scared for his mental state, that it was deteriorating.
Admiration moved easily between them. That's why a sudden burst of dark online rumors about Rob hit so hard. The chatter traveled fast, fed on speculation, and for a beat it felt like the floor dropped out from under people who loved his work. Spielberg felt it acutely. Weeks earlier, he'd seen Reiner at a gathering, smiling in a way that looked earned, not performative, talking about family, about windows of hope, about the kind of personal victories nobody posts on a call sheet.
What I feel after all of this is it's not about punishing. If somebody is struggling and has difficulties, you don't punish them for that. And I think a lot of these programs feel like the kid is being punished. And I don't think that's a great way to go. You're a parent and you think, here's my kid running out into the street, he's going to get hit by a truck. You want to keep him.
The whiplash from that warmth to a trending nightmare was brutal. Then the air cleared. The rumors were false. Relief arrived, but the scare left a mark, a reminder of how quickly a story can spin away from the truth and batter real people. When Spielberg later spoke about it, he didn't do the Hollywood dance. He sounded like a friend. Rob wasn't just a colleague, he said, but a companion on a decades-long creative march, a presence he's grateful for. The sentiment landed because it fit what anyone can see in the filmography. Reiner's run, This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men, isn't an accident of timing. It's a map of a filmmaker who trusts audience intelligence and invests in the small, decisive human moment. And Spielberg's admiration for that isn't theoretical. He knows how hard it is to make a scene both truthful and invisible, to hide the seams so feeling can just arrive. Their kinship has always had a quiet undercurrent. Both men grew up in Jewish families steeped in storytelling and perseverance. Both learned early that narrative can hold conflicting truths at once: wonder and fear, humor and ache, hope and doubt. Reiner brought that tension into a vein of films that still play as warm and sharp today. Spielberg built it into worlds that dwarf you, and then somehow turn intimate in a look or a gesture. There were also conversations that never made the press. Friends recall moments, years back, when the talk between them drifted from cameras and lenses to the kinds of challenges no resume inoculates you from. Reiner had poured himself into Being Charlie, a drama drawn from his son Nick's lived battle with addiction, hoping that telling the story could be part of healing. Spielberg understood what it means to try to make something honest enough to be useful to someone you love. You do everything you can, and you still learn humility the hard way. That, too, is a form of respect. If Reiner's legacy is proof that sincerity can be muscular, Spielberg's is proof that scale can be tender. He was born Stephen Allen Spielberg in Cincinnati in 1946, the eldest of four, to Arnold, an electrical engineer who wrangled early mainframe computers, and Leah, a pianist who filled rooms with music and laughter. The family moved often for work. Every relocation meant new streets, new classrooms, new hierarchies. The constant uprooting taught him to watch closely and listen hard. He found refuge, and eventually purpose, behind a camera. An 8mm gift from his father turned backyards into movie sets. Toy trains crashed, sisters played heroes and victims, and the kid calling action learned the quiet thrill of shaping chaos into meaning. He also learned what exclusion feels like. After the family landed in Arizona, Spielberg was one of the few Jewish kids in his school. The taunts and shoves didn't make him smaller so much as more attuned to the hurt that hides under bravado. That sensitivity to loneliness, to shame, to stubborn hope would later echo through his films, whether the canvas was a Normandy beach or a suburban cul-de-sac lit by an alien glow. By 16, he'd already made a feature-length amateur sci-fi, Firelight, and tasted the strange electricity of seeing your story flicker in a theater. A few years later, Amblin opened studio doors. Duel proved he could squeeze terror from a truck in a highway, and then Jaws changed the entire business. The shark famously didn't cooperate. The chute ballooned. Disaster loomed. Spielberg pushed through, leaning on blocking, sound, and suggestion. The result invented the modern summer blockbuster and taught him, and everyone else, that withholding can be more frightening than showing. But the easy caricature of Spielberg as the ride guy evaporates when you lay the titles out. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is less about spaceships than about longing. E.T. is less about a visitor than about a child's ache and a bicycle levitating on shared faith. Schindler's List stares at historic horror and insists on human specificity. Saving Private Ryan throws you into mechanized hell and then spends its soul on the question of what a single life is worth. Later, Munich, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, each one is a civics lesson disguised as a drama, a meditation on conscience that never forgets you bought a ticket to feel. Technically, he's a master of invisible control, lights that sculpt emotion without announcing themselves, frames that tell you where to look without scolding, a camera that moves like a thought, curious, anxious, relieved, rather than a machine. He's also a collaborator who builds ecosystems. DreamWorks, founded in the 90s with Jeffrey Katzenberg and David Geffen, wasn't just a company. It was a bet that storytellers given room to run will bring back something larger than one hit. Often they did. Privately, Spielberg's life has the shape of a long second act built on steadiness. After an early marriage to Amy Irving ended amicably, he and Kate Capshaw built a blended family that became his anchor. Capshaw converted to Judaism before their wedding. The household that formed around them mixed ritual with art, and a baseline of presence unusual for their industry. He has said more than once that his most meaningful title isn't legendary director, but dad. Mentorship sits in that same register. On E.T., Drew Barrymore was a child navigating more than a child should. Spielberg made a point of being protective and consistent. Years later, he's still asked about it, and he always answers the same way. It wasn't charity, it was the job. Back to Reiner, because the point of this story is the way their careers rhyme in values if not in genre. Reiner's early shift from actor to director could have stranded him between lanes. Instead, he built one of the most astonishing 10-film streaks of the last half-century, moving from parody to romance to horror to courtroom thriller without losing his fingerprint. An almost radical faith that if you honor character, the audience will come with you anywhere. Stand by. Me doesn't work if you don't believe those boys. When Harry Met Sally doesn't endure if you don't recognize those arguments. A Few Good Men doesn't land if that last explosive confession isn't anchored in moral consequence you can feel in your own chest. And then there's Being Charlie. That project, co-written by Nick Reiner, didn't arrive wrapped in guarantees of acclaim. It arrived as a father's wager that honesty might be a bridge. You can sense the risk in the frames. The film won't tidy pain up for you, won't pretend that love alone solves what chemistry and circumstance set in motion. It's the same humility you see in Spielberg's most personal work, the knowledge that stories can help, can comfort, can provoke, but they cannot change physics or rewrite biology. They can, at best, make us braver and less alone while we try. Which is why that flash of misinformation about Rob wasn't just another Hollywood blip. It was an attack on a human being with a family, and on a community of peers who've built their lives around telling the truth in ways that move people. Spielberg's response didn't litigate the rumor mill. It re-centered the person. He praised Reiner's gift for turning laughter into meaning, for finding the warm pulse under the punchline, for making films that feel like companions. He sent care, not clicks. If there's a lesson that lives in both men's careers, it's this. Spectacle fades if it isn't anchored to feeling, and feeling curdles if it isn't shaped with craft. Spielberg's best sequences are symphonies of timing and light braided around a single human heartbeat. Reiner's sharpest scenes are masterclasses in rhythm, when to let silence hang, when to cut, when to let a look do what a paragraph can't. They're different chefs, same kitchen rule. The audience can taste honesty. There's another shared thread, heritage. Both have spoken about how their Jewish upbringings shaped their sense of duty to memory and community. For Spielberg, that mission crystallized in the Shoah Foundation and in Schindler's List, a film that refuses to be passed. For Reiner, it shows up in his advocacy, in the projects he chooses, in a through line of empathy for people trying to do the right thing under pressure. You don't have to say the word ethos to live one. In recent years, Spielberg has talked more about balance, about keeping his health strong enough to chase ideas with the same curiosity that drove him as a teenager. The stamina is still there. What's changed is the calibration. He picks his moments, surrounds himself with collaborators who challenge him, and tries to make each new film answer a question he hasn't solved yet. Every story is a chance to say something honest, he said. Honesty isn't a genre, it's a practice. And honesty is what the moment around Rob demanded. The truth, a rumor flared it was wrong, and it hurt anyway. The truth, Reiner's work continues to comfort, provoke, and delight. The truth, Spielberg's respect for him isn't a press kit flourish. It's a recognition from one craftsman to another. The truth, families are complicated, hope is fragile, and art is one of the few tools we have to metabolize that. If you want a single image that threads their legacies together, picture two very different sets, one with a rubber shark that won't behave, another with 4 kids on a set of tracks. In both rooms, a director is solving problems in real time. Light is failing, weather is shifting, a performance needs coaxing, a beat needs air. In both rooms, the goal is the same. Earn a feeling that will still ring true in someone's chest decades later. That's not a trick. That's craft and service of care. So, yes, the scare was a reminder of how quickly stories can be twisted. But it was also a reminder of what their best work teaches. Hold to what's real. Reiner's films keep whispering that people are worth the effort. Spielberg's films keep insisting that wonder and grief can occupy the same frame and teach us how to look at both. Together, their careers form a kind of conversation about why movies matter, not as headlines, but as human weather. If any of this moved you, if Stand By Me made you call an old friend, if Schindler's List changed how you carry history, if The Princess Bride is still your family's shorthand for true love, if E.T. made you believe a bike could fly, drop your thoughts below. What moment from either filmmaker lives rent-free in your memory, and why? Like, share, and subscribe if you want more deep-dive stories about the artists who've been shaping our emotional vocabulary for 50 years. The films will keep playing. The conversation's the part we build together.